Man, Kevin. I think my mom told me that. All right. We're gonna we're gonna call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Grunder,
Here.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Bloodworth will be late, Commissioner Howell,
Here.
Commissioner White.
Okay. I'll give the invocation. Can you stand with me? And then afterward, we'll do the pledge. Father God, thank you for bringing us here today to go over the budget of the city of High Springs. Please allow us to have clear minds in order to do with this money as you see fit. Amen. We'll keep this short. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If somebody's here, we should just stare at them. They walk in. Maybe not. Okay, moving on to business items. Overview of general fund revenues and administrative departments.
Good evening. So this is a workshop. There's no voting required. Ask questions, interrupt, whatever you need to know. This is for you and your benefit. So if anything's unclear, let me know. I'm going to just start out with a really high level and kind of give you a foundation of what to look for in the budget. And then we'll look at the administrative departments, clerk, commission, finance, city manager, so you can kind of see the components of each of those. And then I'll ask when we're done or as we go, if there's anything that we're not addressing or the format doesn't work for you, let me know. We're kind of starting out with the easy departments that don't have a lot going on compared to like water and wastewater. So that when we get to those, we're giving you the information you need in a way that it's digestible. So with that being said, I will get started. Maybe. Feels really light. Are there batteries in it? Has no light. You can advance for me. So these are terms that you may hear all the time, but don't really know how they are different from one another. So our entire operation we call all funds. So that includes the general fund, which is what we'll talk about today, and all these other funds. The difference with the other funds is they have designated revenue and designated ways to spend it. So for example, if you look at wild spaces, that's got a designated input, a designated revenue, and a designated set of rules around what you can use it for. So each of those are called other funds. They have to be separate. And water, sewer, and solid waste, of course, are kind of their own mini operations, and there's fees for those services. So the general fund is what most people think of as general government. Your administrative function, people out mowing, kind of your basic operations, and we'll go through those. So as we do the meetings, we'll touch on all these other funds as well. But I wanted you to understand what the difference is. As we go through, you'll see what the general fund is. So these are the departments that fall under the general fund's umbrella. And the general fund is just the checking account where we keep the money for the general fund. There's nothing really fancy about it or anything at the general fund. It's just the funding sources and expenses that we collect together for the general fund. And these departments all fall under it. So the revenues come from several different sources. There are a few main categories. Of course, your ad valorem, which is just the property tax we collect in High Springs. And out of a $7.5 million budget, about $3.4 million is ad valorem. And the numbers in this presentation are rounded versions of the 25 budget numbers, just to give you magnitude. We're not really focused on the numbers per se, but more to get you a feel for what's a normal number for this category. The next largest is transfers in. Transfers in come from all those other funds we just saw. So water, wastewater, solid waste contribute to the general fund to offset the administrative function and support of the city for those other funds. and they help support our regular operations. So the other, thank you, ma'am. Charges for services, and in the little boxes on the side, I've kind of given you some examples. It may not be all inclusive, but it just gives you an idea of what's encompassed in these numbers. So that's like your sports fees for soccer, volleyball, school resource officers. So the school board pays us for use of the SROs at the community school, and then First Christian also pays us for an SRO. Police billable overtime, similar if they go work a football game. UF, we bill them for that time. Election filing fees, so when somebody comes in and wants to run for election, pays their fee, and you'll see where it goes out of our system when we get to handle this stuff. Intergovernmental, we get a lot of money from the state, almost $1 million a year for state revenue sharing. There's two different components of that. This is not Wild Spaces money or CRA or anything, it's straight to the general fund. Franchise fees, so utilities in this case have to pay us a franchise fee to do business in our city. So Clay Electric, Duke Energy, and there's several small natural gas providers all have to pay us a fee for doing business in the city, and that's typically 6.5% of revenues, and that is obviously significant. It's over $500,000 a year. The majority, of course, is from Duke and Clay. The fines and licenses, they're very small amounts, a few categories combined together, $32,000, and that's mostly business licenses and court fines. So if there's any categories where we get a piece of an action by the county, we'll get a piece of that. And then the sales and use tax. So that's kind of all your other taxes other than the ad valorem. So your telecom, so every time you have cell phone, wireless, things like that, and you pay all those taxes on your bill, we get a little piece of that. Utility tax, so electric pays utility tax of 10% to the city. So Duke and Clay customers, when they pay their electric bill, they pay utility tax that comes to us. So that's $750,000. So that's a pretty significant number too.
Diane, before you move on,
Yes.
can I ask a quick question? Can you tell me more about state revenue sharing? It's almost $1 million.
Yep.
What are we getting it for?
I don't know exactly what is behind it. I think there's several parts and pieces. Each month we get two payments of between 25 and 40,000. They're two separate buckets each month, and that is what makes up the 975. I believe it's from various funds. I can find out and let you know. I can look it up. I just have to look in the state information and pull it
But
up.
it's mandated that it go to general fund revenues?
Yes. And now, once it's in the general fund, we can do anything we want. The general fund is the least limited funding. We could spend the general fund on the water system if we want to, but you can't do it the other way around without having it designated and approved. But I can certainly get you some more detail on that.
Okay.
So the general fund costs, we have the personnel costs for our staff, and we also have operating expenses. So we'll start with the personnel costs, and I've done them separately because they're just a lot of big numbers. So the biggest, of course, personnel cost we have is our salaries, and that's about $2.7 million. Again, this is across general fund only. Retirement funds, $675,000. So police are the only public safety group buyers in a different fund. But one of the things that really drives our retirement is public safety being high risk. So it's about we pay another third of what we pay them in salary to go towards FRS. So you can see the average, it's about 16%. So that averages out when you look at the other categories that are closer to under 14%. So it's just it's something that people don't always think about when you think of the cost of our employees. You have their salary, and then you have your retirement. We also provide life and health insurance. We spend about $1,200 a month on each employee for their health insurance, some vision, some dental, life insurance. So obviously that adds up quickly. and then the other mandatory components of the FICA, Medicare, and then workers' comp and unemployment. So those are the main categories, and that's about 4.2 million out of our $7.5 million general fund budget. So more than half goes to personnel costs. And then operating, sorry, this is a little bit busy, but I wanted to make sure you had information there, so it's all in one piece for you. So transfers are the biggest portion of our operating expenses out of the general fund, and that is a transfer of a little over $1 million to the fire fund to help support their operations. And then CRA has its separate piece of property tax. It's included in what we get, and then we transfer it over. So it's called the TIF fund, it's the Tax Increment Fund of downtown. And a portion of that growth goes directly to CRA to fund CRA. And then we can kind of start at the top. The other category, because it's one of the larger ones, that is comprised of several small things. It's like office supplies, operating expenses, repair and maintenance of equipment, you know, just like the general million other little things that are not significant enough to put in there. We have contractual services. So we have a code enforcement officer that's under contract. We have the combined communications center, that's your 911 dispatch that we pay. And then for planning, we have a contractual agreement with North Central Florida Planning. We have elevator maintenance. So there's kind of a broad spectrum of contracts that we have. Our property and liability insurance for the general fund side is about $350,000. The biggest liability part of that would be police, of course, and Parks and Rec. And then the rest is mainly property. And vehicles. The utilities cover a pretty broad spectrum. We have all of our buildings as well as the park lighting, street lights that are on the city streets. We have to pay the electric for that. And then the old school civic center, community center, those all fall under the general fund as well. The next category is software. So our financial system, the police programs, obviously you guys know there's a lot of software in police that has to be supported. We have a new payroll system program, and the PIO uses several platforms for the work that he does. So those all add up to about $160,000. And then professional services, our city attorney, for example, our lobbyist, the auditors, new employee background checks and physicals that run through human resources. Those are all professional services. And then vehicles. So our police vehicle leases, the cost of vehicle repairs and maintenance, and fuel, parks, police, and public works in this circumstance, because those are the only departments with vehicles in the general fund.
So we outsource the new employee background check?
Yes.
Criminal.
For criminal?
Yeah, so we do a state, criminal background check, and it's about $66 per employee.
Okay, so we're not spending a crazy amount of money on that. Okay. I was gonna say, because we could probably have somebody at the police department take that class. I think they give it for free. Okay, that's not a big one, good.
No, that's a good way to think, though, because it's those kinds of things that we save money on when you think of other ways to do stuff. So
38% of our professional services budget is going to our city attorney. Gets about $85,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's 37.8%. That's a pretty big chunk.
Well, I asked them about what it would cost to bring us in an in-house attorney.
Well,
So I think that's
it'd be
what
more.
I
It'd be
know,
more.
it'd be a lot more. That's the problem, you know?
Yeah.
I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where we need to go, though, as a city at some
Eventually,
point.
yeah.
When we can get some revenue up is.
Right.
And one of the things that we've talked about internally, just kind of batting ideas around, is what if we shared with another municipality? Because
Right.
really, we could have a full-time attorney, but, I mean, that would be a luxury for us, because then they could write all our policies for us that none of us ever have time to do.
Absolutely.
But the real, legal work that we need, it would be amazing to have a dedicated resource. I mean, Danielle's great, don't get me wrong, she's been very helpful and very responsive, but.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a lot better when, and I've had a, candid conversation with Scott before about it, that, we need to move in that direction with the things, the projects and whatnot. We need dedicated resources here. That's a good idea, splitting them with somebody else.
So, I don't know.
I know before I was talking to Jeremy about properties that we own, that are like pieces of land that can't be done, nothing can be done with. Have we started reaching out to people that were next to that property if they wanted to add on to their property yet? Have we started that
That I don't know.
process?
You'll have to, well, I'll mention it to Jeremy and ask him to get back to you, because I don't know. I haven't been involved in those conversations.
And piggybacking on Vice Mayor Miller's comment, I know that Danielle had put a bunch of properties together for Mr. Marshall's predecessor that were in severe arrears for property tax. And I don't know if we were able, we probably don't have the resources to follow up on that right now, but, you know, if they want to make good on it, great. If they want to turn it over so we can sell the property, great. But there's quite a few, and they're vacant properties. It's not like an elderly widow who's living there. It's just
Right.
nobody's there.
Right.
So,
All right, I'll mention that to him and ask him for follow-up.
How long, the contract with, the contract with CCC, how much longer do we have that? Is that yearly?
I'm looking over to Antoine, he's not sitting there.
Communications.
I don't know, but
Okay.
when the meeting, our regular meeting starts and Antoine's here, I can ask him.
I think it's $100 and something thousand per year.
Yeah, it is.
It's for PD's contribution.
It's just for,
Covered with our ACFR contract.
right, right, but I don't know the term. I'm sorry? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they
But
I
I'm
it's
trying to
like
think what the term
46
is for
bucks a
it, though.
call,
If it's annual or 3 years.
something like that. We used to have one in-house back in the day.
Okay.
These are great questions. This is good. Let's see, professional services vehicles. Anything else on general fund operating expenses? We have plenty of time, so we're good.
for the vehicles one, we're at 13% for 400 grand. Have we seen this year, at least maybe the last 6 months or so, the fuel costs, have they gone down? Are we tracking that?
We are watching that, and the departments are very closely watching it. I know, we just talked about this the other day with fire. So far, everybody is pretty close or under budget. There's certainly
Good.
nobody's going over.
That's good.
So,
Okay.
Have we seen or had time to see a change from leasing the vehicles that we did earlier last year and with the fire truck? Is any of that going down from maybe last year?
it definitely helps because we've removed the monthly payments for the Tahoe, so we don't have that. We were able to purchase the trucks with ARPA money one time and done, so that's eliminated quite a bit, so that's been really helpful. And then we'll start to see with the next payment that we make in December for selling the heavy, we won't have that payment in December, so that's when we'll really see that first 80,000 or something like that. It's around 80,000 savings, so it's
good.
definitely moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Kevin, those trucks are working out? Okay. Love it.
Glad we have trucks.
Hmm.
I really am.
As opposed to SUVs, you prefer that? Functionally, how is that different for you?
In my case, with the amount of public outreach events, especially we've been doing the last couple of months, it's just so much easier to throw everything right in that boxes that I'm taking here, there, everywhere. At top or up,
Good. That's good.
utility wise.
Good. Chief's getting everything he needs in his truck?
Yeah, his is exactly the same, and he feels the same way.
Perfect.
Now, I don't know if this is an off-topic question, but what's the overall deficit that the city is in?
Well, that's kind of a trick question. We're not in a deficit right now. We do not have a lot of reserves. Water and wastewater, we're really, really low on reserves. We are finishing the 23 audit right now, and then we will turn around the 24 audit shortly thereafter, and we will know for sure. I can give you a good answer on that, on what our position is. And that's not off topic. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Angela, do you want to walk through, we'll do like the commission, clerk, and HR, and you can just kind of hit on the areas that are sometimes not easy to budget.
The city commission, The city commission budget, most of it is kind of self-explanatory. Like training and travel, that's if y'all choose to go to Florida League of Cities, training, or any kind of training that you, or travel you use. So like if there was an expense for you to go up to the legislative days, we would use that fund, that line item to pay for that. The insurance cost is the liability insurance, finance handles that. So I think that every year that just comes in. We have to project, I think it comes in after, after the
It
budget.
usually comes, it renews on 10/1, so
Yeah.
we usually are getting the numbers in July, sometimes August, so we reach out to them and they give us a ballpark.
Yeah. But office supplies and operating supplies, well, office supplies, we don't, obviously you guys don't have offices, so what that would entail is paper, your agenda packets. Operating supplies, that for us, because we don't have repair and maintenance, so anything that goes wrong here, like with the mic systems or streaming and we have to upgrade something or pay for something, that comes out of operating, so that we can still operate efficiently. And your dues and memberships, that has to do with, we are part of the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, the commission is, so we pay a dues for that. There is also a mayor's, it's like Florida League of Mayors, we pay for that membership as well, out of the dues and memberships. Most of it is for the planning council.
Where's the salary on there, though?
Oh, I didn't put the personnel services on these, just because they're the same categories for everybody. So we can pull those up if that's helpful.
Well, I
for
mean,
the
that's part
next-
of the overall city commission cost.
It is 100%. I went to operating just because I was looking more at structure and ballparky function.
Okay.
But if you want us to include those in the next set, we can do that for sure.
Yes, I
Okay.
would prefer
Yep,
it,
they
yes.
cost them, yeah.
Okay, yep. They're included in the initial numbers, of course, for the whole general fund, but.
Okay.
Before you go on, what is the insurance for us? What does that cover?
So it's liability insurance.
For
So-
us? I mean-
Yes,
For
yes.
lawsuit. that kind of
Yes.
thing.
Okay. Okay.
Probably need to pay for that, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to stay up to date on that. That's a big,
Yeah.
my mama did call me Lil Liability there for a long time.
And you said like the other boards that we have, this falls under here? Cause I see the mayor's youth council is under here, but
Just
what?
the mayor's youth council falls under there. We don't really have an expense for the other boards. The mayor's youth council, it's because it's the mayor's youth council. That's why it falls under commission.
Okay. So there's no staff time with the other boards?
Well, we have staff time, yes, but it's billed through their salary.
Now, question about that, so who is normally at the other board meetings? Are we paying extra staff? Because from what I understand, Jeremy doesn't come to any of our board planning meetings. Are we paying extra staff because he's not present?
No, the staff we're paying to be there takes the minutes, does the roll call, that kind of thing. It's not something that Mr. Marshall would actually perform. So, like planning, Christy runs that meeting. Christy types the minutes. That's so we pay her to be here. Now, I will tell you, like, on our end, we try to flex out. We have some overtime, but we do try, like today, for instance, Jamie, she came in a little later today to try to avoid the overtime. Christy does the same thing for planning. On the Tree and Parks Board, they have their meetings a little earlier. I think they're at 5:30 most of the time. And so their meetings don't run that long, so he doesn't really get all that much overtime. But Mr. Marshall really wouldn't affect that by him not attending.
Yeah, when I was on the Parks and Rec board, there was nobody from staff ever came out.
Jennifer goes to those sometimes now. I've seen her
At the
there.
booth?
Yes.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, she'll
I
pop
believe she
in.
goes to all of them pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, she pops
And
in
when,
and,
Ms.
yeah.
Corbett was here, she would
Right.
do the minutes for those
Right.
meetings. So now, Mike, that has now moved from downstairs to Public Works, he
Okay.
will now do those meetings.
Okay.
But they only meet once a month.
Yeah.
and he would flex his days.
It-
I think, if I'm understanding Vice Mayor's question, you guys do everything you can to avoid overtime.
Yes, we try to do
flexing
our
your
best
time.
to avoid overtime.
Yeah.
Any other questions on commission? Okay. So on city clerk, the training and travel, that is for Jamie and I to go to training and travel, for me to keep up my stuff with my city clerk. I'm working on trying to get a records certification. Jamie's working to get her city clerk certification. That is what that training and travel is for. Professional services, that, let me tell you exactly what that's for. Give me 1 second.
God, that's a lot.
Doesn't look like I use that very often. I don't know exactly why we have professional.
That's just a
service.
placeholder, I think, in case
Yeah.
something comes up that,
Yeah. So I'm not sure why that, what we use that for, because I think in the past we used it for MuniCode, and then we ended up putting MuniCode as its own line item, because we signed a contract with them. Before, we did not have a contract with them. It was every time we would record an ordinance, we would have to pay a professional service fee. So I think that's just, like she said, a placeholder for an overage of it. So now we have a contractual service with MuniCode. Every time you pass an ordinance, I send it to them, and they automatically update our system. That was something they did not used to offer it in the past, and once they started offering it, we signed up, because in the long run, it is cheaper. Otherwise, in the past, we would hold, because you have to pay for codification, so they send you sections to put in books, and you're paying a lot more when you're doing that for every ordinance. So in the past, we would hold the whole year and send it. So then our MuniCode was not current.
Right.
And then a lot of times our attorney, that's what they used to look it up. So when this became available, we obviously signed that contract and
Yeah.
moved forward. It's much more efficient for us to go that way. The copier lease, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's for the one copy machine up here. They do charge us the lease. They charge us for color, one fee for color copies and a different fee for black and white. So each time we print, that's, but we don't have to. They send us the ink, they send us the staples. That's all included in our contract. Repairs and maintenance, that would be repairs and maintenance of any of the equipment that we have that we need to pay for, obviously. Legal ads, now that one's a little hard, it's self-explanatory really, it's any of the ads we publish in the paper. Each year that's really hard for me to determine, because if we're doing a bid, or say we're going out for a CBDG grant, and those require ads, they become costly, and sometimes I don't know that we're gonna be going out for these ads that we have to place in the paper in October, and then we're doing it in May, and that's gotta come out of our budget. City election expenses, pretty self-explanatory. It looks high, but it's what it's running us, so, each time, so.
and that's all your ballot stuff too, with the charter amendments and.
Yes, now
Those
that
will
would
all
be for the
come out of
ballot, right, and, that's for the election workers, we have to buy, you know, like this year, it's our election, so we'll pay for the, so you'll see it on the 2020, when we do the 25-26 budget, you're gonna see it, and it seems like, oh, well, it would be in this year's budget, the ads are, but the actual election expense isn't gonna come into the next budget year. So like this is for 24-25 right here, the 12,000, but we did run an election this year, even though we had actually 2 that came out of this year's budget.
That's right, yeah.
Then office supplies, pretty like our papers, folders, whatever we need to work in the office. We're really good though, Jamie and I, about not spending too much. If we don't need to buy it, we don't. Our operating supplies, same thing. If it's something that really isn't an office supply per se, but we have to purchase it, we just bought a extra recorder for in here. So that we have a backup recording of meetings, and that way it's there for plan board, whoever has meetings in here and they need it recorded, PBA, negotiations, we need to report it. We don't know how to do Kevin without Kevin. So we have a simple hit record thing. That's something we bought out of operating. And memberships and dues, that has to do with we have 2 associations we have to belong to in order to get your certification for city clerk. You have to belong to the Florida and then the International City Clerks Association for that. And for the records management, there's a public records membership you have to be a part of to get certified for that. Any questions on the city clerk? Oh, I'm sorry, can we go back to the election expense? One of the things that's in there, and Diane made reference to it earlier, was in the election expense, if you were to have a breakdown of it, you will see when you come in to run, if all of you decided to run and you pay the $111 or whatever it is, and I have to budget for that. And I have to project how many people I think are gonna run. So, and I have to add that to the budget because actually the expense part of it is in mine. It gets charged to my account. So even though you give me the check, it's on the general revenue side. So it comes out of my budget to pay it when we have to write the state the check. So when you pay those dues in, we don't keep it, obviously. We send it to the state. That's their fee. I just wanted to make sure you. Human resources. Training and travel, that's any kind of training for human resources, which here in the city, that's one of our biggest expenses would be our staff. But that would be for Jamie and I to attend training, or Jeremy to attend training, anything in human resources. Professional services and human resources, that is our physicals, drug screens, we have a contract for our HSA provider. They issue the debit cards. They put the money on the accounts for any of the employees that have the health insurance plan that they can choose an HSA. So, and they do all of our COBRA coverage. So if an employee leaves, they send out the COBRA notices. When they start, they send out the COBRA notices for us. And that is included in the professional services. That's HR's part of the copier lease. Repair and maintenance if something was to go down. So a lot of times if something goes down in our office and we have to fix it, we'll usually split the fee between HR and the city clerk because we use it for both. The payroll software, that's the new paycheck software we got to start with payroll. And we're finally getting most of our kinks worked out. Legal ads, that is for ads for hiring. Again, it's another expense that I can't really project that much. I never know when people are going to leave, that kind of thing. So with legal ads, we do leave a little cushion in there just because if it's a bigger job like a public works director or a city clerk or a city manager, something big like that, then we have to go outside just advertising locally. So we have to pay to be part of these bigger networks and stuff to get recruiting in. Employee engagement and employee appreciation, that used to be one line item, and I think we kind of just separated it out. The employee engagement is more like when we were having the barbecues at like Camp Kalakwa, or we were having the Christmas luncheon. That's where those funds would come from. And then the employee appreciation, that more has to do with plaques, or like when you're here 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we give you plaques and that kind of thing. And that is where that comes into play. Again, we have the operating supplies and office supplies. Believe it or not, we do use a lot of stuff in HR folders, files, labels for files, all that kind of thing. The dues and membership, that is just for the SHRM membership each year, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, which is actually a really good tool because it's more just than your membership of joining. They have a whole website that you can get policies from, like HR policies. You can pull them from there. They have papers you can read on disciplinary actions, whatever you need on that side, and some training tools for other employees. Any questions on HR?
So now that Chief Shepherd has arrived, what is the length, the term of the contract with CCC? Are those annual or renewed annually or?
They're renewed annually, I believe.
Okay,
It's an annual payment, I can tell you that.
right. I knew the money side, but I didn't know how long the term was, so we do
I don't know the
revisit them
actual,
annually.
the terms of them. And we are charged as a small user product or user of the CCC, which is tremendously less than us having our own communication center.
Okay. Thank you, sir. See how important you are? I mean, you're not here, we have questions. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. The city manager's budget, training travel, obviously, we were just talking about that. Professional services, this is our lobbyist, is the 33.6. Copiers, repair maintenance, office supplies, operating supplies, those are all pretty standard fare. Dues and membership, same thing, professional associations. And I think one of the really, I mean, I can wait till the end to say this, but I think one of the biggest things that people realize as we start doing these kinds of exercises, there's really not much in here. Our budgets as the general government are people. And other than that, there's not, you know, people always say, oh, you have all this fluff. There's nothing here. We got paper and people. And so I think it's really important to kind of have that as a takeaway that, you know, we really don't have much in our budgets, especially on the admin side. And as is typical with a government, it's people.
On that professional services, I can tell you that Andrew is earning his monthly fee and then some
Yeah.
with the emails that he's been sending out summarizing. Because I read a bill before we went up to Tallahassee. By the time we got up to the next day, it already had a new amendment. And he knew about it.
Yep,
And he's tracking all of the ones that are important to us, and
yep.
he's very
He's
plugged in.
totally worth it, yes.
That guy's worth his weight.
Yeah.
And in finance, so again, most of our expenses are people. We have audits, so we have a couple years of audits in here. That's why it's a bigger than normal number. And financial software. So one of the things that we changed in the 25 budget was all of our software used to fall under IT's budget. And so you really didn't see what the true cost to operate a department was. So for example, the police department, they have, obviously, you guys know, a lot of secure servers and FDLE software, and there's an expense to maintaining that. So we broke out the parts and pieces that belong to the police department. They have separate servers, things like that. That's costly. We broke up the financial software, which even though everybody uses it, it's a financial tool. So we put that in the finance budget. So I think that will kind of help us too, moving forward, to really have a better understanding ourselves of another way to make it help us figure out what it really costs to operate our department. So the financial software, you know, it's $15,000 a year, and you know, that helps us. So if we decide at any point, hey, we think we want a new software, well, this is our baseline. So it's going to be really hard to financially beat that, but it would depend on what we could get for services, of course. Operating supplies for finance, most of that is check stock. So when we pay the bills, we have special paper for the check stock to print. So that's why it looks like it's a lot at $4,000. And then the tag office, similar situation. Your training and travel for them is to go to Gainesville. To go to Gainesville for tag training is usually where they're going and what they're doing. The copier lease, they have to print all the bills, so we have more of an expense on the copier. And operating supplies at $33,000. So we mail out 3,000 bills every month, and they're on perforated paper, so you can tear the little bottom off. We had a conversation the other day. We're just going to use regular paper and save about $10,000. Wow. It was one of those 3 a.m. things when I was like, do we really need to use that paper? And then I was like, that kind of seems dumb. So I wish I thought of it a long time ago. But anyway, so it's little things like that that you don't think about because you just do it the same way all the time. So from this point forward, we're not going to use the perforated paper as soon as we run out of what we have, because that's just, you know, people can use scissors, fold it, tear it, whatever they want to do. Send the whole thing back. We don't care. At some point, we'd like to look at e-billing and just get people off of their paper bills and figure out a program to maybe, you know, you get $1 if you don't use paper, but it requires programming in your system. So that's one of those things we're trying to get over, AMI and all those other things we've been doing with programming and paychecks before we pick up a new project.
So is it, because I keep seeing copy or lease,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not even gonna lie, I was always raised lease is a horrible thing. But in this case though, is this the most efficient way for us to have, do we need the lease copy?
Right.
Would we be spending more?
We would, and one of the biggest thing is that the technology gets antiquated really quickly. So if we bought a copier, we wouldn't be able to maintain it in a few years because they've already moved on to the next. They're kind of disposable to the company. So they lease them, people wear them out, they send them back, and you're on to the next one. Like, we just got a new contract and we got new copiers. That includes, and I think Angela mentioned, that includes the cost of all of the ink, the maintenance. If anything goes down, they come in and do it. It's part of they don't charge us for it. So I think in the long run, it is a better deal. Grace is really good about negotiating the contract with them. So we don't just pay what they tell us. We have conversation, and she sits down with the salesperson, talks about what we use it for, how we use it, what the best option is. So I think in this case, just because it's one of those things that, you know, I think we every 3 years probably get new equipment, and by then they don't make that ink anymore. I mean, you know how desktops are at home, our printers are at home. But that's a good question.
And one of the things with the copier lease is if it breaks, we call, they're here the next day, they're fixing it, and we're not trying to figure out, because I'm not gonna know how to fix it.
That is worth it.
Yeah. Well, think about when we have to print bills. You know, we've got to do 3,000 copies, and if the printer's not cooperating, that's, you know, that's not ideal. Let's put it that way. I mean, yes, we could come upstairs, but still, it's
Yeah.
not what we want.
And one
Not
quick thing,
efficient.
I found
Yeah.
a copy of the CCC contract, Buying Communication, and it's every year, and it's an automatic renewal.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Now, I did have a question about the tag office. I know last year I was asking about like driver license, and you were saying the machine was too expensive. Do we actually know the cost if we were to get a machine?
I can find that out for you.
Because I know Fort White does it, and their city's not even half our size, a quarter of our size.
Yeah, sometimes it's technology driven too. I'll have to find out, because the computers that we have downstairs, everybody at the front desk has 2 full-time jobs, and they have 2 separate computer systems that they run. So they're a utility billing clerk and they're a tag person. So because the tag system is there, they have a whole set of separate technology that can only be maintained by the state and things like that. So sometimes that comes into play too, but I'll ask April about it and we'll get some information for you.
And so we actually, do we just renew tags in the tags office, or do we actually do new ones?
We can issue new ones as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do have a question with the last slide about the finance.
Yep.
So you said personal services, a lot of that falls under the audit.
Professional services does, yes.
Yeah. So, like, are we actually on track now? I know, you know, before we wasn't, but like, are we on track this year to being on time?
We are finishing 23s right now, and 24 will follow right behind it. So we got an amazing consultant that helped us figure out what happened, and to help us correct. The account numbers all got changed mid-year right before I got here, and not all of the information got moved. And then it just kind of didn't work really well. So we've been trying to muddle through and move forward and book things, but also try to fix what wasn't completed in the background. So anyway, we've got a great consultant. They've helped us get over the hump. I got as far as I could. They are amazing, and we are working with the auditors right now, finishing the 23.
So we shouldn't be late for 24.
Right. We just, I've got it, we don't have our 24 schedule set with the auditor yet because we want to get the 23 done, and then we'll figure out what the schedule is with them. They'll provide that to us.
When is the 24 one due?
June 30.
Is that's not we're not going to make that.
I don't know. I really don't know. With the extra help that we've had and cleaning up what was broken, it's night and day. I mean,
So we might.
if
make
we
it.
only knew 3 years ago what we know now, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, gosh.
Me too.
We are so much smarter now than we were before, but no, it's moving really well, and like I said, I'm so thankful for these consultants.
And we're not gonna get fined if we're late.
I have not been given any notice that we would be fined for being late, and
Because I know when I mentioned this last time, you all said that we weren't going to be fined, but then Jeremy said they were going to take legal action, which legal action would be getting fined. So I'm
What-
pretty sure that that's what would come after.
what
that.
happens is if you do not complete your audits, there's a lot of communication with the state during the period of time. So we've been in constant contact. And when you get to a certain point, they will withhold state funding. So that's what, there's not a fine, they withhold state funding. So we are talking, they know what we're doing, we're all on the same page, so we should be fine. So that's the only conversation I've had. I have not had any conversation where there's ever anything about fines or,
Yeah, I know when I met with the auditors, we still have the same company. Yeah, when I met with them one-on-one, they said that because we've been late so many years, if we were late again, more than likely we're going to get fined. So that's where that comes from when I
Okay.
say that, because they said that. And
yeah, I haven't had that conversation, but that's, I'm sure if he told you that, then that's something he's experienced, so. And city attorney, we mentioned this already. The city attorney's office has a contract for general representation. Special projects came up a couple years ago when the mural agreements and all the ordinances were being written.
For $18,246.
That sounds about right.
That was the last bill I saw.
So we posted that on a separate line so that you could see clearly when you're looking at the financials, the separation between what is our general representation to have them, they're present, they help us with general work, and then when there's additional work, it goes under special projects, which we haven't had any.
We didn't
of
have any
this year.
last year, did we?
Nope,
Like the basics last
and that's it.
Yeah.
Anything else that we've talked about, adding the personnel services to each department. And you don't even need to answer this right now. We're going to do these meetings every commission meeting day at 5:30. And if you know there's something you want more information about, I mean, the directors will be talking about their budgets. You're not going to be stuck listening to me this whole time. So the directors will also be talking about their operations. So if there's operational questions that you might have that we can answer in a reasonable time, you know, some of it will be complicated potentially, but anything that we can answer during this hour, we can come back. If we don't finish a department and you guys are really into the weeds, and that's a good thing, we can always carry it over to the next meeting.
I have brought up something about the garbage in past meeting about us looking into having our own garbage transportation. Have we managed to go any direction with that to investigate, look into?
Go ahead. Do you know something I don't know?
So he may have gathered information, because I know that he was looking into commercials.
I don't know when garbage is set on the schedule. It'd be nice to maybe have some information to maybe add to that.
Okay. And
A
I
little
think,
bit of information if we can work it that way.
I think that will be in June's meeting, one of June's meetings, probably the
Okay.
second meeting in June. Because we'll do police and fire, and then we'll go into utilities. And we'll pick up the other departments, the smaller departments, with those larger ones as we go.
And then I know this question's been brought
That's
up
okay.
many times, but going back to why we're behind on the audit, is it because things were not listed properly, money was moved around that shouldn't have been? I can't remember coming into this,
That's okay. So.
why were we behind in so many years, I guess, is that what? Commissioner Miller was talking about as well?
Yes. So when I got to the city, the long-term finance director had been gone
Just shut the thing off.
since July, I think, of 21. I came at the very, very end of April 22. And there had been one person that had been hired for a very short time in the middle. So there was a lot of gap. In addition to that gap, the person who was there for a short time in the middle was directed to change all the account numbers. And as you might imagine, this is just a little tiny bit of the lines that we have, and there's thousands and thousands of transactions. So those account numbers were changed in the middle of the year, balances were moved, and that process did not get completed before she left. And there was a consultant in there somewhere that didn't help, let's put it that way. And so when I got here, the 21 audit had to be done, and we didn't have good data because everything had been smushed around. And so basically, since I've gotten here, I've worked on trying to put all the parts and pieces together. So we can't do an audit if we don't have good data. So that has been the delay. Nobody did anything that I see, that nobody's stealing money. It's not that kind of thing. It's just that it got messed up, and with people coming and going, it just,
Timing was mainly an issue.
it just got to be kind of a mess. So I feel much better now on where we are with our data. That, you know, like I said, I got as far as I could go, and you can only stare at the same thing for so long and figure it out. And I found a lot of things, and staff that's worked with me has been amazing. So anyway.
With correcting those issues, have we come back, has the state come back on us saying, hey, this is wrong, or now you've got it right? Or we?
No, the state hasn't been involved. And I think something that, this is just a general statement, but when we have an annual audit, I think people think that it's like a forensic audit where the auditors come in and look at every transaction and every single thing we do. And they don't, and also people want to have the auditors come in and go, you're fine, and move away. But we pay them a lot of money to tell us if everything's right. So I want them to tell me if something's wrong. But there are things that they're never going to know because they don't go that deep. They have a set of, we'll say, the 10 big most important things that need to match. And as long as those all match, and I'm making it very simple, it's much more complicated. As long as those 10 things match, and they pull samples, they'll be like, here's a accounts payable, show us the bill, show us the PO, show us the check. And if we have all those things that we need to have for internal controls, okay, you're doing your accounts payable right based on our sampling. So they're not looking at every single thing unless something isn't working, that's not matching.
To trigger a look.
Yeah, so it's not their fault. They don't know. You know, if what ends up coming out on the other end seems reasonable, you know, because obviously it may not be to the penny, and there's a whole margin of what's material. So they're not really there reviewing all the work that had been done for the year every day. So if there's something that's not working, they may or may not know it if that item doesn't impact one of those things they're looking at. And I mean, they're following the standards, they're doing all their things that they're required to do legally and everything. It's not that, it's just the way the system's set up is it's not a transactional review of every single thing
Okay.
you do. So when we have account numbers that, you know, we're trying to move around, maybe within a department, they're not in the right place, but overall, they're okay. You know, they don't care about that. They want to know that your whole spending is recorded and it's okay. But for us, it's not helpful from a management perspective.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was a very good explanation, but like I said, the hard part with the audits is they're not going to be able to find where there's issues. That's not their job too. That's our job. And so they can't really go in and give you advice in management because they're supposed to be independent. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Anything else? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I would love for us to look into our new business permit process. I think that is the phone call I get almost every time a new business opens up here in town, is that they struggle to open up here in High Springs for some odd reason.
That's true. I get that.
I mean, I can name 10 businesses off the top of my head that has called me about that. So I know I was in the office with Jeremy and Ashley, somebody else was in the office, and they mentioned that the process may be a little dated. So that would be one thing that I would like for us to look into. Is our process dated, and what's the cracks in it? Because everybody feel like they have to go through a lot of hurdles and do a lot to open up a business here, and I feel like it's not attracting new businesses because all the ones that's here complain and say they will never open up another business here in town because of all the stuff they have to go through.
Are you referring to getting the business license? Or are you
I have
talking about
no
opening
clue.
a utility? There's a lot of things that go into that, so it's hard to pin down where
I've
we
heard
need to
difficulty in all
address.
steps.
Okay.
Is there anywhere on the website that details the steps people need to take in order to open up a new
I don't
business?
know.
Because there's lots of different things, you know.
We need to do a lot of work on our website, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But we'll look into it. We'll talk to everybody that's involved and potentially what that could be and see what we can do.
And then the facilities, because we're in general fund, we had a meeting about it. It never came back up, that we were losing money with all the different buildings. We never went through how and how much was the insurance, how much was the utilities. I think that's an important thing while we're in this budget process, that we go through each facility. I would like the Canoe Outpost to be added to that. I would like the Farmers Market Pavilion to be added to that as well, so we will know every facility, that we don't leave those out.
Okay, that's a really good idea. That'll be really helpful. Anything else on, what about structure? Is this too detailed, not detailed enough? Okay.
There's not a roll-up for each one. And in the packet that you gave us, there's not a bottom line for everything.
It's 7.5 million, that number's not
Just on the PowerPoint that you have, like here for human resources.
for each department?
There's not a
Gotcha.
total.
Gotcha.
That kind of helps me.
Okay. Nope, I'm with
Piece
you.
it into the big
I'm with
picture.
you. Yep.
And if you want to put that in black and white so you're not paying to make color copies, be cheaper.
And if you guys think of anything along the way, you know, in between, if there's something that you want to know about or whatever, shoot an email to Jeremy or me or whatever helps you, because this is, like I said, supposed to be informational for you. So what I think is interesting may not be what you think is interesting.
Well, I definitely appreciate us starting earlier in the process.
Oh, me too.
You know,
It's
I-
overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It
It
is.
really
My
is.
first one sitting there, I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have enough time. We don't
Well,
have
and
enough time.
hopefully this process of doing these workshops, when we come to you with the budget, you'll know what you're looking at. You know, you won't have that like, holy moly, this is a full page of numbers. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's overwhelming. And kind of maybe have a better sense of what's a big number, what's not a big number. Because that's always the hardest thing when you're looking at something new. It's like, I don't know if this is a lot or not. So,
One of the things I would like to know, just in the big picture, is what our total debt burden is. Not by
Okay.
department, not by certain, you know, like, well, number 3 costs this.
Okay.
Canoe Outpost costs that to replenish funds. What our total debt burden is.
okay.
And when we anticipate paying it off, because I know we're still paying on the first wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. Yep. Okey dokey. Thank you.